that this takes a lot of practice to get really good at wine service. It's one of those things. It's just that you have to keep doing and doing and doing it to get good at it. You might, today struggle a little bit cutting the foil, pulling the corks out. What I would suggest is, I know we went around the room yesterday and talked about who likes to drink wine. It might be a good idea to maybe drink wine a little bit more, bring bottles home, and pull some corks while you're there. When we open up, you can start visiting with the bartenders and things like that, and you can ask them about opening wine bottles. We do our wine by the glass in the evenings, and you can ask your floor manager or whatever. You can practice opening wine bottles that way. But the only way you're going to get better, though, to be honest, it's funny, even at home, I still have to cut the foil perfect when I'm opening a wine bottle. You should do the same thing when you're home as well. So just kind of practice that. Okay. So let's kind of run through. We're gonna talk a little bit about the glasses that we have, the decanters, why we decant, and then we'll practice a little bit. We're talking about glassware, okay? First off, everybody probably is right there. You realize that there are different styles of wine glasses, right? Different shapes and sizes of wine glasses. Anybody have any thoughts or reasons why you would have a different shape or size wine glass?
Different styles of wine.
Style, right. But why would a different style of a wine require a different shaped wine glass?
Well, like typically for red wine that needs to open up more, like the aromatics of it, you use a more kind of wider and larger glass.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly it. So depending on what it is or what you're trying to accentuate in the style of the wine is kind of accentuates the glass. Okay, so to your point, right, Cab's is a big red wine, and we talk, what you want to do is you want to introduce oxygen into the glass, and so having a bigger glass, you can introduce more oxygen in it. It's also the reason that we decant wine. Wines that have been in the bottle are really tight and grippy, and getting oxygen in them softens them up. So the glasses, they also say that, Riedel is a really famous winemaker. Many of our glasses are Riedel. They are expensive and delicate. You don't often see them in dining rooms because they break so easily. But one of the things they do is they actually design the shape of the glass also so that when you take it in your mouth or on your palate, it directs the wine to your taste buds that would actually appreciate that wine. So the shape of the glass oftentimes is used in that way too, to try to what you're trying to hit inside your mouth. But we have really 5 different glasses that you want to know about. Our everyday glass is a Spiegelau glass here. It's still a very high quality, nice glass. I would say it's a Bordeaux glass that we have. The reason we use this glass on a regular basis, all of our wine by the glass is what we serve this in. It's the glass that we set on all the tables at the Canyon. We set with a wine glass over here. And it is a little bit more durable. It's delicate, but not overly delicate. It can go through the dishwasher. You're going to probably polish one of these probably a couple hundred times this summer. So it's an easy, good, everyday drinking glass. Okay, so that's what we'll have on the table. And when you're opening bottles of wine, unless they request, or depending on what the varietal is, that's the glass that you'll use on the table. All right, the next glass, so Bordeaux glass. The next glass next to it is a Burgundy glass or a Pinot Noir glass. All right, so a little bit more bulbous in shape. Okay, the reason that we do this is Pinot Noir is a little bit more of an aromatic wine. The aroma, the smells of it is something you want to have in kind of a bigger glass. So this is the Burgundy glass, right? That we'll use. So if somebody orders a bottle of Burgundy, and we'll talk about it, we'll switch out the glass and we'll put the Burgundy glass on the table for them when we do wine service. The next glass we have is a champagne flute, right? We think we talked a little bit about this yesterday, right? Why would you want to have a champagne flute instead of a big glass?
So the bubbles don't get away.
Right, to keep the bubbles in there. Yeah, exactly. So there's 2 different styles of champagne glass. There's that champagne glass, and then there's a coupe. Everybody's seen, when you go to weddings and stuff, or ever seen a champagne fountain, they usually pour it into a coupe glass. There's nothing wrong with that, just the bubbles dissipate a little bit more quickly. But we use a champagne flute. Somebody orders a glass of champagne or one of our splits, that's the glass that it'll go in. I will say that when we do our wine dinner when we have, where we're going to be doing champagne, the champagne wine dinner, we'll serve the champagne in a traditional glass. We'll use a Bordeaux glass for it, because we're going to be, the one thing that becomes difficult with a champagne flute, or when you're tasting champagne at a table, you would go through the same process. When you're pouring champagne, they should have an opportunity to taste it. It's a little hard to swirl, right? Champagne and then to sniff it because it's such a small glass. So when you're doing really high quality champagnes or at a wine dinner, we'll actually use a normal wine glass, okay? The last glass, anybody want to guess what this little tiny this glass is for? This is for when kids come in and they're just having a little bit of wine. What do we use? Anybody want to guess? It is, it's a port, right? So why would port go in a smaller glass?
After dinner.
After dinner, what else?
Smaller pour.
It's a 2-ounce pour, right? So it's just a little bit of it. Because it's a fortified wine, you're not gonna get a big glass of it. That's particularly small. You'll see port glasses a little bit bigger than that. But that's what the port glass, just a little 2-ounce pour at the end. The last glass that we have that we use kind of on a regular basis, it is a Riedel glass. It's called the XL. It's a Bordeaux glass. This is actually Riedel's biggest glass they make, so they're like, I guess they're extra large, right? They don't make a bigger glass than this. So we use this when members order a nice bottle of wine or they bring in their own wine. This is the glass we'll bring over to the table for them and set it. A lot of members will request it and ask. They feel like they get left out if they don't get the big glass. We should have enough of those. We'll probably have to order more throughout the summer. People seem to take them home with them. I guess whenever the catering team does a catering event, they go over to members' home and find all our glassware at their houses and stuff like that. So it happens. That's their money or their dues in the end, right? Okay, so that's glasses, right? So our big XL Bordeaux glass, our everyday Bordeaux glass, Pinot Noir, Burgundy glass, Champagne flute, and a port glass. We good on those? Okay. Decanters. So this is our Forest Highlands decanter. All right. So I'm going to tell you a quick little story, or actually, before I tell you this story, why do we why do we decant wine? What's the whole purpose of decanting? Why do we go through that process? Or maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself. Does anybody, what we're trying to do when we decant, do you understand what decanting is? Is basically we're opening the bottle and we're pouring it into a bigger vessel, and then we're going to use the decanter to pour the wine at the table. So we're basically taking it out of the bottle and putting it into a glass. Why would we want to do that?
To aerate it.
Aerate it, yep. That's one of the reasons. It's, the big glass, right, introduces oxygen in it too.
To sift out the sediment in some of the bottles.
That's the other reason, right? So it could be, it's kind of funny, right? A younger cab is a little bit tight, hasn't seen oxygen, it kind of has this grippy, so when you open it up and you pour it in a decanter, you're introducing oxygen. We actually, when we pour it in, we pour it through a filter, and it makes a nice little waterfall as it's coming out, and really introduces a lot of oxygen in there. Maybe somebody unchecked it. So we're introducing, so young wine, we do it so that we want to introduce oxygen into the wine, so it opens it up. You let it sit on the table, it needs a little bit of time. The other reason is older wine. We'll do it, but we're doing it for a different reason, because you're right, as wine ages, the tannins start dropping out, some of the sediment in it, and it collects in the bottom of the bottle, and it doesn't taste very good. So when you're pouring it, it's nice with ours, it has a screen in it. You can, it'll capture any of the sediment as you're pouring it through. Traditionally, what you do is you actually have either a little flashlight or a candle is what they used to do, and they would pour it, would sit in a little basket with a little handle on it, and you'd have the candle there, and as you're pouring it, you'd watch the neck of the bottle, and as soon as you saw a little piece of sediment, you'd stop, and whatever was left, even whatever wine was in there, you wouldn't pour that anymore, and that was saved. So older wine could have quite a bit of sediment in it. So that's the two reasons for decanting. But one of the things that we do is we actually decant all of our wines. And this is the story part that I was going to tell you about. So, you sure you got it?
Someone unchecked all 4 boxes.
Okay.
I know I'm not crazy, so I just checked them again.
Okay. So there's in the winter time, sometimes we'll take classes and we'll go and visit other clubs. So I went to go visit this club called the Jonathan Club in California, and the general manager there was talking to us and telling us about their food and beverage program. And one of the things that he said is that they decant all their wine at their club. So that's kind of interesting. And so the reason that he said he did it, what would happen in the dining room, there'd be a table that would come in and order a nice, expensive, Bordeaux wine and bring it over to the table, several $100s. They decant it, go through all this process and bring in all these wine glasses over and making a big show out of it. And then the table next to them would order some, $50 bottle of wine on the table. They come over, pull the cork out, put the bottle on the table and go on their way. So that those two members who are having two completely different experiences, basically you're saying to the guy with a $50 wine, we don't really care about you when we go out of the way for everybody. So they just decided they would just decant all wines, doesn't matter what the quality or the reason for it. That way nobody ever feels like they're not getting the same level of service. So we're gonna do the same thing here. We'll decant all wine. It's a nice little touch. It also brings up the level of service that we're doing, and I think our decanters have our logo on it. That decanter seems pretty simple. Looks like a little carafe. I'll be honest with you. It's still quite expensive. Even that decanter there is about $100 that it costs, but it works out perfectly for when we're doing our service because our little filter and aerator fits in it perfectly, and it makes a nice little show. It's the first time you do it to a table where a new member, they're like, I want one of those, I want to buy it. We end up selling them that. They like the whole little kit. So and we will sell it if they like it. So it makes a nice little show, okay? But it does make the winemaking process a little bit longer to doing it. It's one of the reasons that requires us to have more service staff over here. Wine service can kind of slow you down a little bit, and luckily when you have 2 servers working a table, it usually works out okay. All right, so that's we decant everything. Hopefully we'll get a few more of these in. When somebody orders a fresh glass of wine, rather than bringing them a new glass, the bartender should just fill up the decanter that we have, the smaller one, and you can just bring this over and pour that at the table for them, so you don't have to bring a new glass every time. Or if you're at the canyon where we have a wine station, you can just go over to the wine station, pour the glass in there, and then bring it over to your table, and you don't have to bother the bartenders at all. So you don't have to use a fresh glass. Okay? And that's the other thing at the canyon we do in the evening. We'll set up wine stations. The 2 veterans can maybe tell you about that a little bit more as far as what we put out there, but returning servers at the canyon. But basically we have it so that we can get your glass of wine directly from the wine station. It'll either be set up in the dining room or out on the covered patio, right?
Well, it's by the hole and
By the-
the dining room. It's any wine $15 and lower than that.
We'll be at the wine station, so you don't have to go to the bar, you can get wine there. Okay, so that's kind of, the bigger decanters that we have. We do have some very, elegant decanters that we bring in special. I was just mentioning when we were getting started, the wine club, it's $100 to be a wine club member. It's just an annual fee that I charge, so we collect that money from them, and I use that money to buy different wine toys for them. So these decanters and some of the glassware we have a wine cart that we'll bring out as well, a guéridon, they call it in France. It's a wine cart that you do wine service on. Wait, I thought it would be a great idea to get a guéridon. You could bring it over to the table and do your wine service. It's too big, we can't wheel it around. We just use it for our wine station, but it's pretty cool looking. So. But these decanters here, this is the Mamba, and this is the Swan that we have. We really don't bring them out unless they request them. We should be using these decanters on a regular basis. Maybe a member comes in and you really want to show them a good time, or they brought in a special bottle of wine. You can absolutely do that. We just have to be very careful. They are expensive, and if you haven't been trained on using them, this one here, you're pouring it from the tail, and you want to kind of get it to work. It takes a little bit of practice getting used to that. So you can use that one, but it does make a nice show. It's a little tougher to do the aerator in those just because of the shape of the bottles. and they get chipped pretty easily. This one here already has some chips at the top. So I forget, I bought a real tall swan at one of our wine events that we had, and I think we had it a week before we broke it. Broke my heart. So. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about wine service, and I'm going to show you how we do wine service. Talk a little bit about the steps that we go through from the beginning. So here's our wine list. Okay, so a member has their wine list at the canyon at the table. When do you think, are you going to go up to a table? They have their menus at the table. They have a wine menu there. When would you look to be getting a wine order? Right? Would it be something you started the evening with when they take their food order? When do you think is the appropriate time for?
After waters are poured, and maybe.
To be honest with you, it depends, right? Because one of the things that we're trying to do, right, we were talking about yesterday, is you're trying to pair food and wine, right? So it's probably too early right at the beginning for them to know what wine they want, right? Usually when I go to dinner, I might have a cocktail, I might not have anything until I hear what the special is and what dinner is, and hear what other people at the table want to order before I determine what bottle of wine, so we can find something that we can all enjoy. So it might not be till we've taken dinner that we've decided on what wine we're going to do. And a lot of times when members bring in their wine, it's a party at the table on the patio every Friday and Saturday night. They bring in all their wine. They'll have it all set up out there, what wines they're going to do. They'll have cocktails and appetizers, and then eventually they'll start opening up their wine, and we'll do their wine service as kind of dinner's arriving. So it really depends, but it's really too early right at the beginning. You might have some tables that know right away what they want, or looking in there, maybe they want a white wine or a champagne or something to start with, that you'll have a bottle that you'll go to. But it could be before they place their order or right after they place their orders when they determine their wine list. So that also means, the wine list might be something that stays on the table for a while, right? Because they might do one wine with, right with dinner, or maybe they switch to something else later on. So wine list, before you take it, you want to make sure that you ask them whether they want to keep it on the table or not. Okay? All right. So we got to think about how we want to do this. Why don't we go ahead and have some people come up and sit? Haley, you're welcome to sit. And how about, I've got 4 people. Why don't you 3 come on up here and sit down? Haley, you too. You're gonna be the host. It's your dinner party.
Do you want this on the table?
I got sorry. All right. So they've ordered a bottle of wine now, and you're getting ready. You're gonna bring a bottle over to the table. So we got to figure out where we're getting the wine from, right? Because we have several different areas. So they've ordered a bottle of red wine. Let's just say, okay, a bottle of Cab. So we talked about, we have over here at the canyon, we have a giant wine wall. It is organized from, just like everything. How does Mark like to organize wine? By body, right? So it is actually, the right side is the lightest body, and then as you're going, it'll be fuller body. So mainly Pinots to Cabs, right? And actually it works out great. The cold air in our wine cabinet blows from the right side and goes all the way through a circulator and then goes back through. So the air is blowing from the right side, which means the right side of our wine cooler is colder, and Pinot Noirs and lighter side wine, you want to be colder than you do the other one. So there is an actual method to my madness there. All right, so the Pinot Noirs are there, so you're gonna go into the cabinet, you're gonna find your bottle of wine. You might have to get the wine list, talk to a manager. We try to organize it that way, but it is very hard. Some of the wines are up high. After a while, you'll get used to trying to figure out where the wines are located. Herman's a good one to ask. Myself, obviously Chandler. He's a great one to have because he's tall. He gets all the high wines for us. There's a little step ladder there as well. But all the red wines, find your bottle of wine. But so now they ordered a bottle of wine. You're gonna find it, but you also need to get your station prepared before you do wine service, right? So if they ordered a nice big Cab, you're gonna wanna go over and switch out the glasses that are on the table and put the nice big Bordeaux glasses there. There's a wine cabinet in the Canyon dining room that has the Bordeaux glasses. At the Meadow, they're kept at the bar. You'll just go and ask for those glasses. So you'll change out the glasses. They ordered a Burgundy, same thing. You'll change out the glasses and put the correct glasses on the table before you go there. You also, might want to get your stations set up as well. Usually, Canyon dinner, there'll be several of these stations set up on the patio all ready to go. A tray, maybe a decanter or filter, but those will be out there so that when you're ready to do wine service, those are already there for you. Okay? All right, so you're gonna go and get your bottle of wine. You're gonna get your glasses set up, and now you're gonna go and get ready to bring the bottle over to the table. Okay? So when you pull it out of the cooler too, right? All right, you know what? I forgot. I left out kind of an important discussion. Why the hell are we even doing this? Right? I didn't even tell you. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing wine service? Why are we going to the table and doing all this? Why would we bother? I'm not bringing over a bottle of beer and making sure that they like it and opening it. And why am I going through all this process of showing them this bottle and setting up the glasses?
It's a unique experience, and it pay more to be here than most people would pay to go to Olive Garden where they just bring you a glass.
There is the ritual citizen, but there's an actual practical reason for doing this.
It's because wine is super expensive.
No?
I'm sure the wine's still good.
There you go. We're tasting for wine faults. There is an actual practical reason for doing this. We're not going over and doing it. What I like to remind people is that we're not doing it to find out whether they like the wine or not. It has nothing to do with that. They better know that they like the wine when they ordered it. We're doing it to see if there's a wine fault, if there's a mistake in the process. So the wine, there's a thing called TSA. It basically means if the wine's corked. But there's several wine faults. I could have this sitting in my office next to the heater, right? And the wine got oxygenated and stuff. So there could be something wrong. So we're doing this whole process so that we're tasting to see if there's a wine fault for it. So that's the practical reason. But yes, there is a ritual to doing it in the winemaking process. So, all right, so before we got there. So I picked out my bottle. I pulled it out of the wine cabinet, I did forget to mention, if you're getting white wine, we keep white wine in the kitchen here in a cooler at a lower temperature. The Meadow, they have behind the bar, they'll keep their white wine bottles, or it might be kept downstairs in the cooler there. But there's different coolers for the white wine. This one happens to be a white wine. We're gonna have a white and a red here that we're going to try, but it's a white wine. And if it was a white wine, we would be using a ice bucket, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. There's a right way to do an ice bucket. It would be the other thing that we had done in the process before doing the glasses. We would have brought that wine bucket over to the table. You don't want to open wine and then go searching, leave it on the table and try to find a wine bucket. It should have been on the table already. Make sense? Okay. So now I've gone and got my bottle. I want to make sure that I check the label, right? Make sure the bottle looks good too. No smudges, no dust, anything like that on it. All right, and when we're going to bring it over to the table, we're going to carry it like we're carrying a baby. What I mean by that is delicately, right? It's a bottle that we care about. All right, so we're going to showing it off to them. That's my little cradle for it. Okay, I'm not going to carry it just in my hand, or stuffed in my apron. I want to put it in its little cradle. What do we call these when we're doing wine service?
Serviette.
Anybody? A serviette. Right, that's the proper name for a napkin. This fold's pretty close, but there's an actual practical fold that you use for wine service, but this one works out pretty well. There's a couple different ways to do the napkin too. I like it to be, kept in its crib. We're gonna go over and I'm gonna present it. I looked at it, I wanna make sure that I know the vintage, the name of the winery, and the varietal. Make sense? All right, so Haley, this is the 2016 Red Diamond Chardonnay.
Perfect.
All right, so at that point, she's letting me know, she's confirming that that's the wine she wants, okay? All right, so this becomes the other little tricky part. Yes?
Who do we check with for the wine?
That's a great question, yes. So I'm looking at the table. The person that ordered the wine, first off, is the person you're gonna serve it to. That doesn't necessarily have to be the host. Or remember, Haley could be, a trained master sommelier and she's having dinner, right, with somebody and they want her to order the wine. So whoever ordered the wine is gonna be the one that's gonna taste it. Sometimes you're gonna go to the table and maybe the husband ordered the wine and the wife has a better palate and he's gonna be like, let her taste it, I don't know shit about wine. So, and then that's what you'll do. So you'll follow theirs, but you're gonna go to whoever ordered the wine when you're doing it, okay? So the napkin. I have a particular way that I handle my napkin. This one, there's nothing written in stone. Herman, I think, probably has a different way of doing it. Chandler might as well. I go and I like to fold my napkin in half. So I have my bottle and I do a tuck thing. So it's back here. So it's behind me. I have easy access to it. It's where I keep my napkin while I'm doing it. But not everybody feels comfortable. I've opened a couple thousand bottles of wine. It works for me, but it doesn't work for everybody, okay? Some people like to have their napkin, and we've seen, have it on there. That's kind of nice because it's right there. You can use it for your bottle to clean anything. Some somms really like to have easy access to it. It's really what you feel comfortable with. For me, I like it tucked, okay? So that's that. And the other thing that I gotta make sure that I'm doing is I want to make sure that the bottle and the label is always facing the host, right? It can't be back like this, okay? You're gonna have your label always facing them, okay? So like that, and you're holding the bottle that way, because now I'm getting ready. The other hard part about wine service is you're not supposed to ever touch the table. The wine bottle's never supposed to be on the table, and the wine glasses are never supposed to leave the table. You're not supposed to lift a glass. We're not pouring beer, we're pouring wine, okay?
What about champagne?
Champagne, you're not supposed to tip either.
Not the glass?
Yeah. And we'll talk about that. It's tricky. And it's funny, we were doing a catering event to our wedding the other day, and I was pointing out to the servers then that you just have to be patient. There's a way that you can pour it in the glass where the bubbles won't overflow, but it's mainly being patient. Okay, so we've showed them the bottle. Now I'm getting ready. I have my corkscrew, and we're going to talk a little bit about corkscrews. This is, it's called the waiter's friend. I think it's a great corkscrew. It's been rated great. Not everybody likes this corkscrew. I'll tell you the benefits to it, and I'll tell you some of the challenges with it. The biggest benefit to it is it has a great knife. Okay. The hardest part when you're first learning to do wine service, the thing that you get most nervous about, I think, is cutting the foil. Right? How do you cut it? How do you not set it on the table? How do you cut it without making it a jagged edge and all that? So a knife is a really good thing to have, a sharp blade to do it, and I think this blade works pretty good. It's kind of angled and it fits the bottle really well, okay? The challenging part is that it also requires a little bit of strength to be able to pull it out. It's kind of basically the corkscrew is a lever, you have to be able to pull it out. So sometimes it's a little challenging that there's these wine keys, a little cheater step to it, in that it has a hinge, okay? So when you're pulling it out with this, you pull it out halfway, and then you put it back in, and you pull it out the rest of the way. It makes it easier, almost like gets a little bit started. I wasn't going to say it, but it is like it's your training wheels. It's your easy way to kind of get started with opening wine. Okay. And the other thing that it kind of helps out with too is when you're going to see when I pull the cork, one thing that you try to avoid, and it'll happen to you, it happens to the best of us, is when you pull the cork out, you're going to get a little popping sound. It means that you pulled it out too much, and it's not really something you're supposed to do. You want the cork to come gently out. You want to ease it out of the bottle. But you'll see as we're doing this. Okay. Anything there? All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to cut foil for the first time. Okay. So we're going to pull the blade out. So your wine key, hopefully you have it in your back pocket. You don't want to be searching for it. That's the other thing when you got prepared to go to the table. Make sure you have your wine key. Nothing more embarrassing than showing up at the table and being like, oh my God, where's my wine key? So make sure you have your wine key, right? And that you can easily find it. You also don't want to be fumbling around in your apron. So I just keep mine tucked in my back pocket. I can just grab it, pull it out, okay? I'm gonna pull the knife out. And what we're gonna try to do here is it should be 2 swipes. It should be cut and cut. We'll see how I do. And we're gonna cut from the bottom, okay? technically you can cup from the top of the label. We're gonna cup from the bottom. Some people say that if you cup from the top, that, you know, when you're pouring the wine, you can get a little taste of the foil from that. Okay, I don't know if that's true, but some people say it. So we're gonna cut, okay, and then cut in the back, all right? And then hopefully we can be able to just pull it off. And now you have your foil. What am I gonna do with this? I'm just gonna put it on the table? Okay, yeah, we'll put it in our pocket, yeah. You could, some people, you can make a little cup out of it. I don't want you to do that. I prefer you wouldn't, and you can put the cork in it. Let's just put the foil away, okay? Some places will have it where they actually have a little plate. When you're taking your sommelier test, it's required that you have a cork plate. There's actually a cork plate on the table that you would have next to there where you would set your cork. We don't have a cork plate, but, oh, I did mess up a little bit there. I'm gonna blame it on the cheap foil. Okay, so now I have to get the cork out, right? So somehow with my two hands, I have to be able to get the corkscrew out. So I'm gonna pull that out and I'm gonna get started. I use my finger as I get this. Oftentimes, if you don't open wine a lot, seems to be the hardest part for people. They struggle with at the beginning, how to get it in. So I have found, I just start in the middle and I will stand it up. I'll stand up and press it in. Okay, now I've already gotten it in, and I can start going. I'm gonna spin, okay. All right, that one might be a little farther in than I want to be. You gotta be careful, you don't wanna go too far in because you don't wanna break through the cork right on the other side, but you wanna get far enough in that when you pull it out, it's going to not get stuck in the bottle. The other thing now, it's hard to be, you know, you don't wanna look like you're strangling the bottle, but you have to have a little bit of firmness here, right? So I wanna pull the cork out.
The label.
There we go. Not quite all the way, so I'm about there. So now I'm gonna hopefully be able to twist it out. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, so now I pulled it out. The other thing I wanna do is, I can't put it back on the table. I wanna use my serviette. That's why I like having my serviette there, is I want to be, I can't touch this. I'm not supposed to, okay? So I take my serviette, go like that. Okay. Put my corkscrew away and present it. Okay. Why am I doing that? What's that? Okay. Well, sure. So at this point, that's my first test to see if there's a wine fault. Okay. So most people, I'll be honest with you, ignore it. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, quick question. But when you screw it off with your serviette, but when you set it down, are you allowed to touch
Yes.
it? Okay, because I did not know that, and I like every single time awkwardly try to like set it down with my serviette, and like it never works. So
No, you're trying to avoid it. Yes, at that point you can. Yes. Good question. So, right, but now I know where I can grab it. What I don't want to grab it from is where the wet, moist end is. So I've pulled it out, right? I've gotten it off the cork. Now I'm grabbing it from the dry end, and now I'm presenting it to them. Okay, and it's harder to tell with this one because it's a white wine. You're not picking up much from the cork. You can see, right? But what, just for your own edification, when you go out to dinner, what you're looking for, so you can feel the cork. First off, you want to see that it feels wet. If it looks dry, okay, if you see lots of red veins or running up the cork, that might be a clue that you want to pay attention when you're tasting it. You can smell. It's gonna. I mean, there's so little wine on it. It's gonna be really hard. You're gonna have to have one hell of a nose to be able to pick. But you might pick up something that doesn't smell right. It's just your first clue. You know what? I need to pay attention here. But mainly touching it and looking at the cork is going to be your first clues. Okay. So I'm going to set that down for Haley. Okay. Right, now I'm going to have that serviette, get myself ready to pour the wine, okay? And am I pouring her a glass of wine? Yes. And I'm pouring her away, a little taste. So this is the other tricky part that takes a little practice. You're still manipulating that napkin. I'm making it a serviette. I'm doing two things with it. I want to have it there to catch my drips. So the nice thing that we've done is that we've changed. We used to have white tablecloths in the dining room. So when you poured the wine, boy, one drip of wine was like, you know, it got everybody's attention to see it. We don't use white tablecloths anymore, so you can make a drip, and sometimes you can just recover by using your serviette. Okay, so I'm gonna go over to Haley. I'm gonna stand open to her, right? Not with my back to her, just like I'm serving anything. I'm gonna keep that label facing her. I'm gonna step in and give her a little taste, pour, twist, and stand back.
Good.
So I poured her, I gave her that sample. She's given me the clue, right? It might be a minute, she might be talking and stuff like that. I'm gonna stand there until she gives me the nod. She's gonna give me the nod, and then I'm gonna go around and fill everybody's glass. You know, not quite full, right? You know, maybe like a 2-finger pour, come back and finish off her glass, top her glass off, and then put the bottle down. So the one thing that I didn't do, and actually was, and we actually did this right, is I let her taste, and at this point in time, what I would need to do, I gotta think, actually we decant and then we taste, right?
Taste first.
Taste first.
Wait, taste and then decant, right? Right, okay, wanna make sure. So actually so I let her taste, because what's the sense of decanting at this point? If she sends it back and she didn't like it, we're not gonna, you know, what we're gonna do, by the way, is we're gonna, good, Jen, you have a question?
I was just gonna ask what happens if she doesn't like it.
So, good question. That's what so if she doesn't like it, if she says, you know what, there's something wrong, what we can do at that point, you can just, oh, I'm very sorry, take the cork, bring it in, and you're gonna give it to the manager or put it in my office. Wineries will take it back. I'll just keep it in my office, and the next delivery I say I had a bad bottle of wine, and they'll give me a new one. And then what you do need to find out though is, at that point, if they sent it back, would you like to try another bottle of that, or do you want to look at the wine list?
I'll look at the wine list.
Right, so they might decide that, you know what, I don't like Red Diamond, or I'm worried about it. It should be that maybe just that bottle was corked, but maybe they want to switch to a different wine. And if she did though, I have to pull her glass, give her a fresh glass, and we're gonna do wine service all over again. Okay?
If they're tasting it and they just don't like it, like it doesn't have.
And it's their bottle.
Okay.
We might, because we're a club, we might be nice. You might go up to the manager and say, like, he didn't really, you know, he was a little disappointed with that wine. Is there anything we can do? But basically, you know, you bought it, you own it. Is this the deal? Right?
It's very, very, very rare that
Yeah,
that
that's never
happens.
happened to me. I just was wondering.
But right, there have been people, and I've had it where people say there's something wrong with the wine, and I'll taste it in my office. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this wine. They just don't know what they were getting. So, all right. Before I decant, so I'm topping off all those glasses. So the other thing that we could do too is if they're going to switch to a different wine, maybe they just had this white wine for their to start with, and they're going to have a red wine. We're going to start this whole process all over again. We would bring new glasses. We'd let her taste for that new glass, and then pour the wine in the new glass. If she gets another bottle of wine now, is what I'm leading up to. So they've had this bottle, they really enjoyed it. Am I going to go through that whole process again? Do I have to do that whole thing again? Yeah, we do, right? Because why are we doing it?
Check for fallacies.
We're checking for wine faults. So it's a new bottle of wine, might be a new fault. Do I have to, if it's the same bottle of wine, am I giving everybody new glasses, or are we staying with the same glasses? Only one new glass, just for the taster, right? So we don't want her wine to taste tainted, so I would bring her a new glass to taste, right? So they have it. The other people, once she approves it, we would fill up the other glasses. Trick question. Okay. All right, so now let's say, so I poured, she's approved the wine. So now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to decant. And if you can, it is, you know, we did say about the process, right? We do want people to see it. It is pretty cool, particularly with red wine. Not quite as big of an effect with white. We wouldn't really, speaking of, unless they request it, we don't decant white wine. We'll decant red wines. You don't have to even necessarily decant Pinots. If it's a special table and they request it, you can decant it. Mainly, you know, any of our bigger full-bodied wines, you want to decant all of those, okay? All right, so now all we're doing is we're gonna pour it in the bottle. Can you guys see a little bit of how it's kind of waterfall effect there? going into the other thing, you can't just glug, 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 by the way. It takes a little bit of time. You gotta be patient as you're pouring it through here. And with the screen on there too, oftentimes you can't see what's happening below. So you can oftentimes overflow, so just take your time.
That wine is actually a lot sweeter than I
A lot of sugar.
anticipated it to be. But you know me, I don't like sweetness anyways.
You don't have to spit it back in the glass.
I should have.
It's a thicker wine, just lift the or the aerator a little bit, give it some
Yeah,
air.
he's right, it will get a little air in, it'll go a little bit quicker. So typically, you know, if we weren't decanting, you know, the one thing that we would do is after we open the bottle and we poured it, you usually put the label in front of the host within arm's reach of them. If we're, you know, the same thing you might still want to keep, if we're not using a tray on the side and if you're decanting everything on there, you'll put the bottle still on the table and the decanter if you can, because the label so that they can see it and appreciate the wine.
And if you don't have a table, you're doing all of that standing right, bending right?
You can decant at the table. There's no way you can do both.
Okay.
I don't know how you could.
Yeah.
You'd be a magician. You need an extra arm. Yeah, if you don't have the table, you can decant on the table. You have to.
Another reason why you want to put the bottle next to the decanter over here at the Canyon for dinner, I've seen people, you know, it's a big tent top, open a couple bottles at once so it can air out until they're ready for it. So you want to make sure that bottle's next to the right decanter, because when they're opening 3 different bottles of red wines, you want to make sure you know which one's which.
It's easy to get them mixed up. So yeah, so you might have several bottles. So we're gonna leave the bottle over here with the wine. Okay. So now we're gonna go back over and we're gonna pour everybody a little taste of the wine. Again, you don't want to. Technically, they say that there's 5 bottles in a glass. We do at the club. We do 4 glasses in a bottle out of a bottle. But you want to make sure that there's a little bit left in there. So we're gonna do like a 2-finger pour. Okay. So don't fill up the glass. Don't do the pour like you were getting a glass of wine from the bar is my point. The other thing is you don't know how many people. You might have 1 bottle and 6 people at the table, right? We happen to have 4, so. Okay. Make sure you get similar pours though for everybody. And then, I know I've done this before, sometimes you forget the host. You're like, hey, what about me? Right. Okay. Finish up, you can also try to catch all your drips. And then the decanter off on the side. Now, if you put the decanter on the side though, the one thing I'll say is, it becomes your responsibility to refill the glasses. When you leave the bottle on the table or the decanter on the table, at least they have the opportunity to, they should never have to touch it, but we get busy, things happen and stuff like that, but they should be able to pour their own wine. If it's white wine in a bucket, we would leave it there with a serviette so that they can pull the bottle out and it also doesn't drip on the table. But again, within the host, within arm's reach for them, okay? But if you have it on the decanter and it's this far away, boy, there's nothing worse than a guest having to get up or the member get up and go get their own decanter and fill up the glasses. So it does require being attentive to what's happening. Okay. All right, so that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish as far as wine service. I'm gonna, let's see if wine buckets. Let me just mention that. So I said that you're gonna have that wine bucket at the table if it's white wine. You wanna make sure when you make your wine bucket, it's about 2/3 of the way with ice and then maybe half with water. You don't want it to be just water floating in there. Why do we do ice and water, by the way?
So it can go in the bucket? Like
Right, it makes it easier to go in, but ice water is actually colder too. It can chill, it'll chill wine a little bit better, keep the temperature a little bit better, right? So, but you want to make sure that the bottle, yes, easily goes into the ice, okay? And not just a couple of cubes and some water in there, just floating in there. All right, so make sure you do that beforehand. You got it here. Hopefully, if you were smart, maybe you set a couple up to start the evening and they're all ready to go. Otherwise, you got to run into the kitchen, fill it up with ice, go to the sink and get water in there and make sure that that's at the table. If you do a wine bucket too, when you leave your bottle there, you gotta make sure that you always leave a serviette. I know servers many times forget this. You wanna make sure that that's there and you drape it over so that, again, you have it when you come over to top their wine up so that you can stop all the water before you pour and fill up their glasses. But if they also grab it, they have something to catch the drips, okay? All right, so they've enjoying their wine, they finished, you come over to the table for some reason, you know, you find a bottle like that, which never happened because it meant that we didn't do the wine service, right? But are you going to, at that point, take it away? Just clear the bottle, what would you do? Maybe it's an opportunity to sell, I guess is my point, right? You wanna make sure you're gonna come and they, because they might be talking and doing stuff, you might want to make sure that you show the wine to the host. They might not, you know, bring another bottle over, okay? Whenever you clear a bottle or that they're done, you know, just make sure that they see you, and you might want to let the host know they're having a good time, they're carrying on and stuff, but you want to make sure you have that opportunity to see if they want a second bottle or look at a wine list, okay? All right. Oh.
Or no?
Do I want them to pour bubbles?
No, do you want to go over it?
Oh, yes. Champagne. So if you have champagne flutes on the table, right, it is the same tasting process that you would go through. The only thing is tricky with opening a bottle of champagne. Jim, would you mind going to the bar just grabbing a bottle of champagne?
There should be the Koema in that cooler by the POS.
Gotcha. People get nervous about opening champagne because, right, there's pressure in it, there's a little bit more to the process. It's really not that bad. There's just a couple things that you need to do to be able to pull it off. It's usually kind of fun. But just a couple things, I'll show you how. We're gonna remove the foil from it. And then the big thing is you just wanna make sure that you're being safe. We're not gonna wave the bottle at them. We're gonna start spraying people. Yeah, we don't do sabers too. We don't hit the cork and send it flying. We're gonna actually, we'll gently pull the foil off, and then we're gonna cover the bottle with our napkin as a safety measure. And then basically, if you hold the bottle at a 45-degree angle, use your napkin and slowly twist the bottle, and while holding the cork back and forth, the cork will just eventually come loose on its own, and you'll have a little bit of a pop, but not much. And if you hold it at a 45-degree angle, you'll really, unless the wine was kept warm, if it's at the right temperature, you'll get no drips or no bubbles or anything coming out. And then you're just gonna stand the bottle back up, okay? And just like you would.
Just a quick question. It's only happened to me like a couple of times about like when I'm trying to open champagne, sometimes maybe there's not as much pressure behind it, and so it's like extremely difficult to open it if you're sitting there. Number one, is that a wine fault? And number two, should you just like excuse yourself and
if you're having trouble with it, it's not coming out. Usually, yeah, I've had some ones that are a little bit challenging, where you're fighting the cork a little bit. I find if you're working a little bit, you might just say, I'll be right back. Have a little trouble with this cork, and you can go aside. I've had that happen where I've pulled a cork out and it's their wine, and and I'll show you an also in a sec where the cork's broken, and I'll have to go and filter and do a little side work without them kind of seeing what I'm doing, cleaning it up. But yeah, if you're struggling with a champagne bottle, it's okay to, and even if it's nice if you have a tray, because you can sit down, you have a little area to work a little bit easier. I've had a couple of those corks you struggle with. Don't shake it and say, I'll get this baby out.
If you can't get it out, you say, I'll be right back, I'm gonna have somebody help me open this, and they offer to.
No.
Don't let them.
No. There's a couple members that want to show you and help, unless they're insistent and they're being difficult. They're going to say, they might not say anything, and they think that they're being generous, but then I'm going to get some survey, they're going to come up to me and they're going to tell, or I'm going to find out, your servers aren't trained, I have to help them open a bottle of wine. I can't have that, right? If you're having trouble, either step aside, let somebody jump into it, or grab a manager, or if you don't feel comfortable yet, don't even do it yet. Have one of us open a bottle so you'll feel comfortable enough doing it. But what they'll call me out on is they'll say, I got this for you, that's not a big deal, sweetie, you're good. But then, a day later they find me, your server didn't know what they were doing, they didn't know how to open a bottle of wine. It just makes us look bad. Yeah. All right, I don't know where Chandler went to get that bottle.
There's a bottle of champagne in this fridge.
Edgar, would you want to grab one? Right, maybe he's looking for the keys. Well, while we're waiting for that, I can show you an also.
10 years older?
Yeah, so actually, 10 years would be a pretty good way to look at it. When members start bringing in wine, thank you, of their own, and oftentimes they'll bring in an older bottle. You know, it's still our job to open the bottle up for them, but those corks start breaking down, getting delicate. So we use another device called an osso to open a bottle. It prevents the cork from breaking down as easily with you normally using a corkscrew. It'll actually hold the cork in place. This one here has you don't have to necessarily use it. This is called the Durant. It's a double process. You actually put the corkscrew in and then do the osso on top and pull it out. I'm just going to show you with just using the osso part how it works. So you can kind of see. I'm just going to teach you this, but most of the time one of us will do it, or a manager will come over or whatever and do the osso for you, because it's a little bit trickier. And if it's an older wine, it's probably a good idea that one of us kind of help you open that. So what you're trying to see, that has two different length tongues attached to it. What you want to do is you want to get the long one, and you're actually just moving it back and forth. You're just rocking it into place. It'll go down to the cork. Nice part is it can't get any cork into the bottle because we're not piercing the cork. So then once we're flush there, all I'm doing is I'm just turning it and pulling it out. And there's the cork. So it makes it almost so that you can't. Herman likes to at the very end stop because they make a little tinging noise at the end. I didn't do that. Okay, so that's that. But looking at champagne, okay, so same process. You would still tell them what they're drinking. Usually champagne's non-vintage, so you don't have to give them the year, but the name. You'd still keep your serviette there. All right. So it depends on the champagne bottle. Usually they'll have a little tab that you can pull off that makes the foil come off a little easier. Maybe not so much. There. There it is. There we go. Okay. I'm struggling with this one. Okay. All right, so I got that part of. This is where we have to be careful at this point, right? Because we don't want to point it. We want to take the foil up. So you're not pointing it at them, keeping your napkin nearby, okay? And now you're gonna, there's a little,
Over here.
oh, there it is, thank you. Okay, we're just gonna twist that. Okay. Take the cage off. Okay. Now I'm gonna use my napkin over top here, right? And I'm just twisting. That was it. And then if you wait a little bit, you'll see the gas kind of escaping. Okay? All right. You still present the cork. Okay? And then you're just going to again pour a taste. That's all there is. Okay, let's set it back down. Right. So, well, I want to, again, it just takes patience. It takes just a second, but you're going to have to, it takes a little bit longer. A lot of times what I'll do when I'm doing champagne is I'll fill everybody's glass a little bit, let the bubbles settle, and go around and pour it again, and to top their glasses off. But it really just takes patience.
Did you leave the cage on it
Nope.
while you were taking it off, or no? You removed it? Okay.
Actually, this one
Yes,
isn't.
I've heard some people keep the cage on
And then
when
go
removing
underneath.
it, and some people don't.
I didn't know what the other force
Well,
policy was with it.
A lot of times they want you to cover the napkin with the cage while you're taking it off. I'll be honest with you, it's really hard to do, and it's cumbersome. As long as you're not pointing the cork at them, you know, or being safe, I think you're fine. And you see the way I poured that? I just poured it very slowly, and I got her full glass without much time. I can't just glug, glug, glug into the glass though. Okay? All right.
I'm gonna drink this.
You're good. All right.
Cheers.
My wine service.
What would you consider like a toasting pour for catering? Like when
Half a glass.
Half a glass?
Yeah, half a glass of champagne. You should try to get 8 pours out of a bottle for when you're doing. That's what my normal when I'm deciding how much champagne to order. I'll go off of 8 glasses for champagne. Usually, let's be honest, most people. First of all, we're not pouring the best champagne for doing a toast. It's usually our entry level, and a lot of people just take a sip and put the glass down. Okay, so no sense in giving them a full glass for that.